Next on 9 News, historic dysfunction in Washington, D.C. as the House of Representatives makes a final decision on the fate of Kevin McCarthy.
Denver police want the public's help in finding a homicide suspect accused of killing a man who went missing months ago.
And today, jurors heard from the doctor who performed Elijah McClain's autopsy as he laid out how he concluded that ketamine was the cause of death. 4 o'clock at 9 News starts now.
We begin at 4 o'clock with breaking news from our nation's capital. Kevin McCarthy has been removed as Speaker of the House.
Many people watching it play out in Washington today, but this now becomes the first time the House has ever voted to remove the Speaker, a vote of 216 to 210 to vacate. 8 Republicans joining all 208 Democrats in voting to oust McCarthy. And one of those Republicans was Colorado Representative Ken Buck, afterwards tweeting, "It's clear that we need a principled speaker who can keep his word, not just to members of Congress, but to the American people." Fellow Colorado Republican Lauren Boebert did not support McCarthy during the initial speaker run, but voted not to oust him today, tweeting that now was not the time to remove him. There's much more coming up on this story later in the hour. Here in the metro area, Denver police are asking for the community's help. They're trying to find the person that they believe killed a man who was first reported missing 6 months ago. We're talking about James Montoya, last seen leaving a bar with a group of people that he just met in early April. Well, now investigators believe he was killed shortly after.
Police, as well as Montoya's family, shared details at a news conference this afternoon, and our Jaleesa Rosari was there and joins us now live. Jaleesa, this family has waited for a long time for some answers.
They have waited quite a while, and police say the homicide unit actually got involved back in late May when they received some information that made them believe that James Montoya was dead. Now, Montoya left that bar back in April with a group of people that he had just met that night, and that included 33-year-old Jesus Arvizo. They later received information that Montoya was in a car with Arvizo when an argument took place, and Montoya was shot and killed. They believe that incident happened in Denver in the early hours of the day Montoya was reported missing. Police believe Arvizo then transported and dumped the body in Saguache County, just north of the municipal airport. His remains were found back in July. Montoya's family says they do not know Arvizo, but did speak to him on the phone after Montoya went missing. They say they knew all along he was involved.
If you hear this, Jesus, I just want you to know I did warn you that day that this day would come. You've hurt a family, we've all hurt people, but it's not too late. And come and do your time, bud. It's time to pay the piper. And we're here. We're not going to stop until we do find you.
Now, police say they did arrest someone else in relation to this case. They arrested Amber Jean Dominguez on a charge of accessory to first-degree murder after the fact. They do believe that Amber was in the car at the time of the shooting. Tom?
Well, Jaleesa, some of that information makes it sound like police do have some pretty good ideas of what may have happened. Now it comes a matter of nailing it down.
Exactly, and this family is not going to stop until justice is served.
All right, thank you, Jaleesa Rosari.
Today, a doctor laid the 2019 death of Elijah McClain squarely on a sedative injected after a confrontation with Aurora police officers. That testimony came in the trial of 2 of those officers accused of wrongdoing in that incident. They and other officers stopped and restrained McClain after a recall that he was acting suspiciously. The 23-year-old was not breaking any laws, and he was not armed. 9 News investigative reporter Kevin Vaughn has been in court today and joins us from Adams County. Kevin.
Kim, the jury has already heard testimony from one doctor about how Elijah McClain died. But today, the jury heard from the doctor who performed his autopsy. Dr. Stephen Sina arrived in court after lunch, the 21st witness called by prosecutors. Sina had initially concluded that he could not determine how Elijah McClain died. Nearly 2 years later, he amended that decision, citing additional evidence, and ruling that an injection of the sedative ketamine was responsible for Elijah McClain's death. He explained to jurors why he reached that conclusion.
I know from looking at the video that he received the ketamine, and a minute or 2 later, he's agonally breathing, and then he went into cardiac arrest and followed a downhill spiral until he died. I am sure of that.
The significance of this testimony is that that ketamine was administered by 2 paramedics, not by these 2 officers. Those paramedics are set for a separate trial later this fall. Kim?
Yeah, that's so important, and trying to understand what the jury is hearing and how they're processing this is a big deal. But this was the 21st witness, so where are we at as far as a timeline for this trial?
Dr. Sina is still on the stand. There are expected to be a few witnesses tomorrow, more minor witnesses, and then the prosecution is expected to wrap up Thursday with an expert in the cause of death who is expected to be on the stand for much of the day.
Okay,
These are the defense could open their case on Friday. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Key witnesses right now for the prosecution, and then what the defense puts on as a rebuttal to that. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Right now, a man who tried to get his car back from thieves is recovering from a gunshot wound. He's expected to be okay. Aurora and Denver police are investigating. Here's what we know. Aurora police say the car theft victim tracked his car down to Denver about 5:30 this morning. The man tried to get the car back. The suspect shot him and left the scene in the stolen vehicle. By 6:30 this morning, officers spotted the thief. There was a short chase, and then the suspect crashed near 6th Avenue and North Del Mar Circle. That's just by Del Mar Park in Aurora. That person is in custody. Police warn against ever trying to stop a car thief.
The victim of a car theft will be a victim unless they chase after the thieves and get involved in criminal conduct themselves. And that's always an enormous possibility. Car chases are great for the movies. They aren't so great in real life because more often than not, tragedy occurs.
So it is worth noting, if you don't call the police, you can be liable for a lot of criminal activity, or you can get hurt, of course. It's best to call 911 if you're the victim of a crime. The victim of the car theft and shooting is expected to be okay. Denver police are investigating the shooting. Aurora police are investigating the theft and the crash.
Today, a procession to honor the life of a fallen officer. Christine Guerin Sandoval, killed in a hit-and-run crash in Colorado Springs just a few days ago. Police say 3 parole officers were trying to serve a search warrant in a shopping center parking lot. That's when the suspect drove away, hitting both Sandoval and another parole officer. Both went to the hospital, but that's where Sandoval died. The other officer was treated and released. The Department of Corrections remembers Sandoval as a wife, mother, and daughter. Sandoval's death was the first Department of Corrections employee to be killed in an act of violence since 2013.
Colorado's highest court says it will hear the case of a baker who refused to make a cake celebrating a gender transition. The decision comes after a U.S. Supreme Court victory this summer for a graphic artist who didn't want to design wedding websites for same-sex couples. Masterpiece Cake Shop owner Jack Phillips won a partial victory before the U.S. Supreme Court in 2018 in a different case after refusing to make a wedding cake for a gay couple. He was later sued by Autumn Scardina, a transgender woman, after he refused to make her cake to celebrate her gender transition.
Look outside today, things very much cooler, and that was just as advertised. Kathy had been telling us about this little wrinkle in our warm weather, and we're going to be warming up again, but you could feel that fall air this morning.
Oh yeah, it was kind of a little taste of the autumnal, season, right?
Even some snow up in the high country.
Yeah.
I mean, you stepped outside early this morning and it was like, okay, here we go.
You got my attention.
You got my attention. Light sweater and light jacket weather. You know what? It's turned out to be a pretty good day, though. The main system we're tracking is still moving into Colorado, but at least the wind has come down just a bit. And thankfully, that wind didn't take all the leaves off the trees, so still a lot of fall foliage to enjoy. Beautiful in Fort Collins this afternoon. And as Tom mentioned, there's just this little frosting layer up on some of the higher peaks up by Loveland. Of course, they're making snow up there too, so the ski season will be underway before we know it. Average high this time of year is about 71, and we made it to 70 today. 80 in Lamar. Look how much cooler in the high country, though. Temperatures in the 50s this afternoon. Humidity value still on the low side, so the thunderstorms that we're tracking are producing just those gusty, damaging winds. The wind flow is out of the west instead of the southwest, and it's a whole lot better for the Front Range and Eastern Plains than we've seen for the last 72 hours. Look at this circulation swirling and heading into the northern plain states. Out ahead of it is where we're seeing severe weather. I've had ahead, severe thunderstorm warnings, even a tornado warning just outside our state's border with these gusty storms that are racing toward the north and toward the east. Not entirely quiet on the eastern plains, but we're watching that radar pretty closely. I don't know that Denver's going to see any rain tonight, but that rain last night was wonderful. And now we're just watching some passing clouds moving through this evening and again tomorrow. And temperatures are just going to continue to trend a little below average, but I wouldn't call it cold. We're 70 now, dropping into the 60s after sunset. And coming up, a cool autumn day. We've got that storm moving through. We'll talk more about the rain and wind forecast coming up.